Hey everyone, just want to take a quick moment and let you know of a few ways you can help support the show. First, you can like this video and subscribe to our channel if you enjoy the content we're putting out. Share this episode with other creatives and help spread the word. Next, you can go to creativesideup.com. That'll take you over to our Ko-fi page where you have the ability to drop us a few bucks and help support independent creators like myself so we can bring you more episodes and feature even more creatives. Additionally, you can go to anchor.fm/Edgeline Studios and have access to everywhere the podcast is available. And if you'd like, you can tap the support button and become a supporter with a small monthly donation to help sustain future episodes. Finally, follow us on Instagram at CreativeSideUpPod. Join the conversation, send us a voice message. Share your story with us. We want to know, what do you do creatively and what inspires you to do it? Your message could be featured on an upcoming episode of Creative Side Up. So thank you for all your support, and now back to the show. Hey everyone, welcome to the Creative Side Up podcast. My name is Tim Olson, and this is a show where we unpack creative minds. Now let's jump to our first episode, screenwriter, filmmaker, Frank G. Caruso. We're on, and do you want to explain why I feel like I'm a little frazzled here?
Well, his setup was tremendous. I mean, we got a clock counting us down here, keeping track of the time. We've got lights with poles set up in the back, well, the foreground really, and then we've got a red set up here. We've got, well, that's a phone. They don't even make this phone anymore, do they?
They don't. It was such a disaster that they decided not to make it.
But the 3D
anymore.
Photos on there, they're crazy good.
They're good.
They're
very
really
good.
And
people count it out so easily, but it's actually
you're lucky. You were one of the
camera.
incubators for the phone, right? What number 66 was it?
Yes, 67 actually.
Oh wow! Well,
yeah.
They moved you up.
Yeah.
And then you have your camera set up. You have a screen there. We can see each other.
Yeah, it's pretty good, and I got to say I'm a little frazzled right now because I came over and we were supposed to record tomorrow, but in fact you called me, or I called you, and then out of nowhere in our conversation you said, "Can you do the podcast today?"
They call that a non sequitur. Yeah, I said, heck, it's free now. I got to go to the airport tomorrow, so I figured let's do this in case something happens at the airport. You know, through searching.
So I got my gear together. I said, I have to give me 30 minutes to get my gear together, and then come over here and set up. Took a little bit to get set up, and I've been contemplating on whether or not to do this podcast at a studio or in the back of a car, or But
at a deli, a good deli, maybe. Because I'm going to be getting hungry after
this. Not that
this.
second-rate stuff.
No. Second tier. I want first tier.
Yes.
If we're going to go deli.
And I thought there's something interesting about going to the creator and in their space that they where they're most creative in some sense, and do the podcast here.
This is it here. However, because of technology, I'm doing it everywhere. When I write, I use a software called Final Draft, and literally on the plane on my iPhone, they have an app where you can go in, and I have my screenplays in there, and then I can switch back and forth stories I'm working on. So that's kind of cool. But this is the main hub of my area here, where I can be left alone. Right. Early in the morning, late at night, and do my thing. I don't know how much they can see, but there's a lot of stuff
So
here.
What I'm going to ask you, because I want to start out with almost every episode with this, is when people ask you, what do you do? What's your response?
Well, because of my deep passion is really a filmmaker. Screenwriter, of course, to create the content, because I like original content, but I usually use the word filmmaker because that's what the product ends up to be after the screenplays have been written.
Do you now not to pull away from the conversation, but what do you think of these mics? I'm still kind of up in the air about it.
This is the screen to help the breath, right?
This is what they call a pop filter.
A pop. So you're not going to hear singers use this, and they put their hand like this, right?
And you actually are a little bit of a singer, aren't you?
I am a little bit of.
I'm not going to ask you to do that.
But if someone had a song, I'll stop people, literally on the street. Actually, when I was working, as a creator, you have many jobs to sustain your passions, and I have many jobs. And at one of my jobs, I would sing to people coming into the building. I just did. And now I'm not a great singer. I would just sing by any means. Not a Tony Bennett or Sinatra or anything, but I would sing to people. Almost. I'm almost there. And while Poet had written a story about me and published it in a recent book, which was kind of a sweet thing to see that, because she recognized not my singing so much, but that I was caring for her.
Well, it's interesting because I realized with this podcast, I'm going to be introducing a lot of the guests to the audience for the very first time. A lot of people may be watching this or listening to this and not know who you are. Don't be offended. Don't.
I'm trying to figure that out myself. So they don't know who I am. I'm an independent, filmmaker. So very few people know who I am. Once in a while.
But that's not true, though. I mean, you're the type of person that people walk down. If you're walking downtown, people will go, "Oh, hey, it's Frank," or they've seen your face before. You're an outgoing individual who you go out of your way to get into people's way.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested in story and everyone's story, and everyone has a story. Right. And and we need to really make. Especially at this time in history in our country and the world, make connections. So I'm not forward or rude, but I do engage in conversations at a coffee line or at the DMV where I was. I thought I'd be there a long time. The other day, I was only there for like 12 minutes.
It's a record.
It's a record getting through, which was great. But I'll engage people in conversations. Most people are amenable to the conversation. Some people get nervous. Why is he talking to me?
Right.
Why is he doing that, at this moment? But usually they're great. And so I get to hear their story and we make fun, do a little, we're telling jokes.
Right. That's the other thing about you is you always have a sense of humor in how you carry yourself. You're singing, you're telling jokes at the bank, you're carrying yourself with a bit of laughter.
Little laughter, little joy, because, if you get on Twitter or Facebook, any of the social medias, they're so maudlin these days. You really have to program everything if you want to get something out. And stuff that I put out, I hope is uplifting, whether it's my words or my photographs or my films. Not saying I won't write about stuff that is maybe dark, have dark tendencies to it, but only because it's leading into a bigger story at the end. So,
and this may be just a very basic question, but why writing? What is that to you? Why do you? Why are you choosing writing and not cinematography, or even you focus actually on writing movies and screenplays, whereas other writers could be a journalist or could be writing novels. Why is your focus in cinema?
Well, it started way back as a kid visually. I had my Kodak 127 camera, black and white film, was developing the photos. And when I saw that first picture, Tim, develop in the solution and come to life from a blank sheet of paper, I was amazed. It was extraordinary to see that. And then the first time I didn't know what I was doing. I still don't, but it overdeveloped. And then I put another one in, did it again, got it on put it in the solution, and then I stopped it, took it out, rinsed it, and then I saw in the process of developing those photos that story changed, because I could get that photo really dark or really light. So it was really getting back to story. And believe me, cinematographers tell stories. Music tells stories. Film is collaborative, but the story starts without the screenplay. We have nothing. We have to start with the written word. And I love that. And I love storytelling. So that's the beginning. And I have so many ideas. I'm going to die before all my ideas. Yeah. I mean, if I live 50 more years, which I probably won't, my stories are going to be archived in a safe.
And no one will get to them.
And no one will get to them. I have so many every day, every moment. Things happen to me in my regular working life and in my own life. I mean, I just jot down ideas all the time. And I love having the technology because I can go to it quickly.
Right. So your ability to take ideas from everyday situations and work them into a story is kind of your second nature. That's kind of what's been built into you. Whereas someone may see, a stranger help someone up off their feet, and you will, you've already worked out an entire backstory in that real
I have
situation.
a backstory for there's so many instances like that. Now, I may have articulated it before to you privately, but I was in the lobby of a building, and someone dropped something from a distance, and they go to pick it up, and they missed it. So they went down again to pick it up, and they missed it. And I started laughing. I'm about 40 feet away. I'm laughing. I'm thinking, this is great. So I enlisted people to do this right there in the building, to literally drop something and let me get it. And I come up to them, if I'm explaining this incorrectly, and say, no, let me get it. You didn't get it. And I go down and I keep missing it. And we actually did it in front of people, and they thought we were crazy. No, I'll get it. And I keep missing it like 6-7 times.
But that's the type of person you are. Like, if I'm with you, we're hanging out, we're going to the grocery store, we're always coming up with pranks to do in the aisle. We did a bit the other day where we noticed the one big thing in someone's cart. It'll be like a gallon of milk, and we'll say, where's the milk? They're out of milk, and
Yes,
seeing if that person hears us and want to step in and say, the milk's actually, and no one ever does.
I think they're out of milk. Yeah, we go out often shopping, and we talk a lot when we're out, because that's a time that we're alone in my vehicle, driving, speeding.
Yeah.
And then we can
Always
talk about
speeding.
things and doing to get to where we need to go. But we'll go into shops, grocery stores or wherever we are, and do whatever happens at that moment. Really looking at people and wondering what their story is.
Now, a lot of what you're describing is from everyday life. So how do you translate something like that to the screen, where we have the ability to utilize, special effects or lights, or where the sky's the limit, really? How do you translate those everyday situations to the screen when you're writing?
Well, when I see things like you just articulated, I jot it down first in my head, and then I jot it, I have my phone, I jot it in my notepad, and I don't know where I'm going to use it. But when I'm writing, depending on the screenplay, if I hear a word or a verbiage, or the way they put together words, people in line or something, and I think this is neat, but I don't know where it's going to go, I'll put it down and I'll integrate it within a story. It may not be that same story. It may be the comedy I'm writing on or the drama I'm working on. And, I remember that line was said, and I'm going to use it here. Today I was watching a film, and someone said a line that I hadn't ever heard written down or spoke before. And I won't use that line, but I'll use something like that because it's there. It's already said. But I thought it was cool. It was the best thing out of the movie, that line, which I'm not going to tell you right now.
Don't tell me right now. So when you do you watch a lot of movies? A
lot of movies, yeah.
You're inspired by other filmmakers.
I go through them like crazy. Okay. I think I'm I right now in the library. They have a list there of how
people
many,
they don't let in anymore.
Yeah, they don't let in anymore. I'm at the top of the list for checking out film.
Yeah, right. Don't let this guy in.
Don't let him in. He's depleting our
right.
Our
you're not, because you're not returning them.
I'm not returning them. That's the thing. So, but just DVDs, also books. I'll reference books, art books, other screenwriters that have written movies, of course, acting. We're fortunate we have online streaming. We can access things so quickly and easily and see work of the independent films and what they're doing. And storylines. Just some tremendous work is being done by independent filmmakers. That's just phenomenal.
Well, in something I really admire about what you do is a lot of screenwriters starting out, or those that aspire to be a screenwriter starting out, may start with, a lot of creators have a lot of self-doubt in themselves, and they say, well, why would I start doing something that I don't have the funding for, or I don't have the network connections to do? Whereas you're coming from an angle of just write, just keep writing. Don't think about any of that stuff. The story comes first. Just write it.
Yeah. I forge forward. And I've coined this phrase a long time ago with a collaborator of mine. I'm the youngest filmmaker in America. Because, I keep going. But mind you, today, and this happens, I was doubting myself this morning. And it can happen any time of the day, but today I was looking at some work and getting online and looking at some of my files. And I have files now online on my computer in tubs and boxes. And I'm thinking, what the hell am I doing?
That imposter syndrome.
Yeah. So, I got up and got outside, walked around a little bit, got some fresh air. Because you doubt yourself. Everyone doubts themselves, but don't let it stop you.
Right.
And go back, because I know this. I've doubted before, and I keep going back and creating. And Tim, the best thing for me is to go and write something, if it's a word or a line or a paragraph, and I read it back, and it's fantastic. It moves me. It changes me in some way, and I feel better. I feel better doing that. Even if none of this comes to fruition, if I can't get... Now, I've made 3 films. I've made hundreds of videos, short videos, made small documentaries. But if nothing happens for a payday for me to do this, without all the other jobs I have, I won't say I'll be fine, but I'll keep doing it because I love it.
Right.
I love story.
Right. So nothing's going to stop you from writing.
No.
You're always going to be writing something. You're going to be inspired by something you see and work that into your stories.
Always, until I'm old. Very, very old.
Well, it's interesting talking about the self-doubt, because even today when we had to make the schedule change and do the podcast today, I was mentally preparing myself for tomorrow. And so there were certain things I still needed to do and equipment I needed to test for this, and it's things you don't necessarily think about because it's a podcast. It's like, what do you just set up a camera and set up the microphones and there you go. But I was thinking, well, how in depth do I want the conversation to go? What questions do I want to ask? How do I want to steer this ship? And then you call me the day before I'm prepping myself for the next day. You say, let's go. And so even on the way over here, I'm like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? I feel like I didn't do my book report. I'm coming over with...
And this is so weird. Let me tell you. This is weird. I'll tell you why this is weird. Because Tim and I get in my car and go and talk 100 miles an hour nonstop. We're slowing it down here. You wouldn't understand. And we riff about every single... jokes
literally, left and right.
And we go at it, and we never think. But at the end of that, when we pull in somewhere, we turn to each other, typically one or the other, and we say, that should have been a podcast.
We should have recorded that.
We should have recorded something to that.
Are we capturing that magic now? I feel like this is a different conversation that we're having now.
Well, we're more, no one's here. We could look around. We did describe the camera's lights, and this clock is counting down here, counting up. It's actually counting up.
I didn't want anybody mentioning that.
We're not, I'm
that's
sorry.
All right. We'll
cut this out.
Yeah.
Cut it out. Yeah. But it's kind of cool, though.
It is.
I like it.
It feels like
I'm
going to
ask you later how you did that.
Well, I did a TED Talk, and I'm just kidding. I haven't done a TED Talk.
I
know that a lot of times
he
there's
did a
clocks.
Ralph Talk.
Yeah, Ralph Talk.
Which is a real. It's the dark internet. It's out there.
Exactly.
So we no, I think it's not contrived at all. We know each other. And
for a long time, by the way.
Long time.
We should say that. When did we first?
You were still breastfeeding when I met you, and my nipple hurts.
Oh my God!
Is this getting?
So
no, I think
we met.
What
was it? 2005, 2004?
Like 12 years.
Holy smokes!
Right?
It's got to be. It's got to be
just before 12 years. Because we were making Going Great White.
It was just around there.
And I met you then.
Yeah, I think so. See, now that's a good point, because we talk about technology all the time, and look at what it's allowing us to do right now.
It's phenomenal.
But back then, you were still making movies. You were still making independent film at a time when, a lot of people like to say, well, now anybody can do it with their phone, and certainly you have that ability. But back then, when you actually had to kind of get a small budget together for the gear, and you had to find people that were willing to believe in your message and show up every day in terms of crew, actors, to make a full-length feature film and get behind your idea, you kind of worked your way in with your cohort there, the other Frank, who I'm hoping to get on here. But you two kind of worked your way. I don't know if I want to say fake fake it till you make it, but you kind of did that in a sense where you got the whole community behind you of the town in which you filmed in to kind of support what you're doing. I mean, you were selling DVDs at the local grocery store.
The grocery store, the pharmacy.
Yeah. And you got everybody in the film, and then they all show up to the premiere, and it's this once in a lifetime event that was kind of lightning in a bottle,
Yeah. 125 people.
I know.
We begged.
Yeah.
I was talking to Frank just over the weekend, and we were garbage picking for props, driving and going through the garbage. And at one point, literally down his street, there's a keyboard. I pick it up and I say the teacher is going to do the alphabet on the keyboard, and it's reversed.
Right.
QRSE.
Right.
So and that was it. And we wrote it.
Right.
We didn't have that scene done, but we picked
Right.
the prop dictated the scene, and it became a funny thing that great Jim Stauffer.
But it didn't stop you from making a film at that time when really it wasn't enough to pull out your phone and film on that. It was like, we got to go out and get real cameras. We got to get actual videographers who know what they're doing to make this film. And then essentially, you guys edit it on Final Cut and take it to Sundance yourself.
We did. We physically were on the street.
Physically went to Sundance.
Handing it
exactly.
out to people. We did, the phone, is not ringing.
Yeah.
Then or now.
Or now, yeah.
Yeah, we're in talks with no one. But we had a ball.
Yeah.
We loved being there, being a part of it. People were so nice to us. We'd go up to the security guards to try to get in places.
Right.
And we'd say, "Hey, we're from Wisconsin. We don't have tickets to get in." And the guy'd look over here and say, "The door's open." And that was it. The security
Right.
always letting us in, really
Yeah.
nice to us. People were great.
Well, what does that say about you as a creative, as a filmmaker? What does that say about yourself in willing to take chances? Because I struggle with this a lot too, where it's like, well, I want to do this, but I already see the roadblock. Whereas I don't know if it's just a perception that I have of you, but you don't ever seem to show that there's a roadblock. You kind of just go through. I don't know how you're able to manipulate that mentally.
They're there, yeah, for sure. I mean, and if there is, you go under it, you go over it, you go through it if you have to.
But what are you doing? It's
I don't want to use an expletive here because the kids are listening, but why not?
Yeah.
The people that are making the big budget films,
Yeah.
they came from somewhere, from their mama's womb into the world.
Way back.
Way back with, they had nothing and got out. It's about funding and getting funding. And on our project, people volunteered. It was great.
Right.
And we had theater actors. We had two guys that knew each other that had it was really a loving project to create that and have that.
How is it that is it just because of your personality and you're willing to just walk up to someone and ask a question and say, "Hey, would you like to be in a movie? Hey, would you?" Whereas, if you come from a background of working in film, someone would say, "We have to hire, we have to get SAG actors, we have to get background talent, we have to get a whole crew." You two just went out and just made it. You had actors. You actually did have actors who showed up every day, who were part of the film.
It was probably because we didn't know any better.
That is part of it. Yeah.
That has to be part of it, because now we think as we go on, hoping to do another film in the next year here, that we're thinking, insurance, cover the actors.
Right.
We want a different level.
But
maybe
could that film be made today? I didn't mean to interrupt you. But
Going Great White?
Yeah, or a film like that. Could that have been made today? I think if you're a creative out there and you've got nobody around you, maybe you've got a couple friends that you like to make movies with, let's say. How do you take those ideas and instead of putting up these roadblocks of saying, I got to get permission here, and in some sense you do have to get certain licensing and permission to utilize locations, music in your film, that kind of thing. But I mean, as an independent filmmaker who has a creative vision, how are you able to take your story and not add any limits to it, Or is that maybe the wrong way to phrase it? Maybe you're saying, I understand my limits, therefore,
Yeah, I don't, we all have limits, but I don't even like to put those upon myself. I think it's possible. I think what is it? The difficult is possible. The difficult is possible, and the impossible takes a little longer. So it can be done. Could that be? Not in that way it couldn't be made, because we know more now, which we should delete. Because if we delete that, then we just go, hey, why not? We can do it.
But not to discourage anyone who wants to make a film. You definitely should make a film.
Go and make it.
Yeah.
And don't ask for permission. Do not.
Wow.
Just do it, because you start asking for permission to go down on the main street or go in a drugstore. Like, we walked in, the owner wasn't there. The clerk was there. We told them what we were doing. Boom, they let us film. I mean, there were so many times like that.
Yeah.
Just don't ask permission. I'm sorry to say that, but don't ask for permission. You're not hurting anybody or not breaking any laws, but just do it.
Make your movie.
Make your movie. Get out there. And now it's even easier. We were shooting on mini DVs. And before that, it was VHS tape or film. Of course, we couldn't afford film, but...
Hey, everyone. Just want to take a quick moment and let you know of a few ways you can help support the show. First, you can like this video and subscribe to our channel if you enjoy the content we're putting out. Share this episode with other creatives and help spread the word. Next, you can go to creativesideup.com. That'll take you over to our Ko-fi page, where you have the ability to drop us a few bucks and help support independent creators like myself, so we can bring you more episodes and feature even more creatives. Additionally, you can go to anchor.fm/Edgeline Studios and have access to everywhere the podcast is available. And if you'd like, you can tap the support button and become a supporter with a small monthly donation to help sustain future episodes. Finally, follow us on Instagram at CreativeSideUpPod. Join the conversation, send us a voice message. Share your story with us. We want to know, what do you do creatively and what inspires you to do it. Your message could be featured on an upcoming episode of Creative Side Up. So thank you for all your support, and now back to the show. And welcome back, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Yeah.
So I want to dive into a little bit more into your excitement for the future of filmmaking, and a bit into the creative aspects. You lightly touched on. Now, if you have the means to go out and make your movie, make your movie. You don't need permission. Go make it. How does that translate to the stories being told? Does that open up a possibility of the locations you can go to? Or do there is limitations when you want to just make a movie. You can't make a sci-fi movie I guess you could, but this is me putting my own pressure and limitations on these ideas. But where do you see, as technology moves forward, does that open up the possibility, or does that still hinder on your...
Technology does. Now, I will say, when you say you can't make a sci-fi, there are people that are not in film, gamers, that are creating content that is incredible with technology and telling stories within that. I mean, there are some creators, filmmakers, that are doing special effects that are phenomenal in these short films. So you get a computer, you got some software, the ingenuity, time, of course, you can create just about anything. And in my screenplays are really a story-driven, really character-driven stories. And I do have several of them that will need special effects, because I'm creating an environment that doesn't exist in this world anymore. And one of them, well, two of them actually, but one of them is very high tech. It's got a look like it's from, 20,000 years ago, that one. So, and that's something I wouldn't put my time into creating that technology. That would be a bigger project and more a dollar value, and in bringing in very creative people to help do that. However, the story itself, to be read by the screenplay, is phenomenal.
Right.
That story.
There's a lot that's phenomenal to you, man.
Yeah, I love that word. I mean, it's a great story, and the characters are great. Yeah. So that'll just reading it will take you away into the other world. And when I teach in the summers, I teach stop motion animation to the kids, and to kids at like 9 to 17. And talking about technology and story, I ask them about reading and do they read stories? And that, your mind is the greatest tool in the world because you can create that environment in here. And once you create it in there, it's better than any special effects movie you'll ever see, ever. As we sit here today, that is an amazing thing.
Right. Well, you have the accomplishment of making, whether it's a 2-minute film or a feature film, you have the accomplishment of making the film, but then are you a professional or not?
I don't know.
This is unbelievable. It's not even a number you have to get to.
I turned it off. I don't know what happened.
Oh my God. Wow. This is really, I thought, ladies and gentlemen, disregard everything that we've extremely unprofessional.
We're taking it.
It's all right. So let's just dive right back in. So whether it's the ability to make a 2-minute film or a feature film, there's the joy you get from actually, and the satisfaction you get from actually having the final product. But a lot of filmmaking is the experience of going through with you and your friends and actually making the thing. That seems to be a way to grow your passion, whether you're doing filmmaking, whether you're a photographer. It's getting out with friends and actually
collaborating.
Yeah.
It's a family.
And doing the thing that you love to do and learning from each other.
Oh my gosh, yeah. When you go out, and we had a guy hearkening back to, well, actually it was the film Lake Jimmy. We had a guy come in and light a scene in one of the diners. And he lit that beautifully. It's my favorite scene in the film because the way it's lit. Cinematographers, guys that really know their craft, a good DP, and framing a scene, doing people like that. I'm just in awe of that can do that, and those things tell stories: lighting, cinematography, music, of course, the writing, but. Right. I admire it, and I like to be around people always that know more than me, which is quite a bit of people.
Now, let's go through some. Do you have any when you write? Do you have any routines that you do for getting into telling stories? I've heard of writers before putting characters, situations on paper, putting it in a bag, and then pulling it out. And do you go through any of that, or are you, because a lot of what you do is related to life and you write down notes of things you see. Yeah. Do you go into writing with a story in mind, or are you, like every other writer, you're going to run into writer's block, like how do you get around some of those? Are there any creative elements that you may include?
Well, I don't know if I've had writer's block, but if I come to a situation in a story and I don't know what he or she's going to do, I stop and I do something else.
Give up.
Give up. I throw it out. I rip it up. I throw it away. Now, in terms of, it's all over the place, but it is character driven. Now, I wrote a screenplay called The Red Umbrella, and I did a little short on that. But that happened. I'm coming out of a prison where girls were in this school, a wayward school for girls years back, 30, 40 years ago. And this
now,
was
maybe put into context what you say when you say I'm coming out of prison.
Well, yeah, I was doing a Read to Me program. It's a program where the prisoner reads to the videographer, me, videotape them,
and then that gets sent to their children.
The video and the book books get sent to the children.
Right.
So at one day, I happened to be in the school of the prison, and one of the inmates told me I'll give you the cliff notes rather than the full story, but said this was a school for wayward girls. So I'm driving out this long road. It's a beautiful long road out of this prison. And I see carved into the stone, School for Wayward Girls. And in my head, I say these words, and I'm sitting waiting for cars to go by to get out on the highway. And the words are this, and this is the beginning of the screenplay. It's the log line, which I wish I could remember it. No, I can remember. Yeah, I know it. We're all born into this world pure and unsculpted, and then we're touched by humans. I went home. Literally, by the time I got home, I knew the beginning of the screenplay and I knew the end of the screenplay. So I got home and I wrote down those words and I started the first line, and then the screenplay itself, where the mother and daughter, we're in present day, and the mother and daughter are connecting, and we go back in time.
Right. So when something like that happens and you just have to get home to write this, are there situations that you are kind of ignoring extraneous elements and just going right into writer's mode?
I remember that. Like all those times when I started screenplay, I was so excited. Yeah. I mean, like a kid maybe at Christmas back in the 50s. Yeah. I was elated because those words, and I felt that story. I felt those girls and there were boys in prisons, in schools as well, but I felt the heartbeat.
The characters.
I felt the characters.
You felt for them.
I felt for them. I knew their heartbeats. I knew what they were going through. I felt it physically. Right. And had to write it down. Right. Yeah. And since then, you have made a short trailer for the film. I did. And so when you're writing though, you weren't thinking of this is going to be a short trailer. This is going to be a way for me to get the film out there. You're just writing to write because you love to write. Exactly. And that was a visual part, and I thought, let's do a little trailer, open it up a little bit, and see what we can do. So I did that. Put it together. The funny side story to that, I'm looking for an old car, and I go to a junkyard. I'm driving in the country alone. I see this junkyard, and so I pull over and go down to the junkyard, and an old man comes out of a barn. And I told him what I was doing, making a film. I've written a story, and I want to do a short film. And he goes, yeah, what is it about? I said, it's about a school for wayward girls. And he stops in his tracks. He turns to me, and he goes, is that about the prison up the hill? And I said, yeah. And he says, my wife was there. And then... they call that the film gods. The film gods. And so he was very helpful. Yeah, getting me a car. No, but see, you do this a lot where you run into people and it just kind of... I don't want to say it just kind of works out, but there's an element of serendipity to it all. A lot of serendipity. There's a word I didn't expect to use today, but there it is. With John Cusack, right? But there's a lot of that with your work where it's not even necessarily tied into something you're expecting. It's just that it comes from the situations that you put yourself in front of the people that you meet, the conversations you have with individuals, and the effect you have on them and their ability to kind of open up to you. I don't know what it is about you, Frank, but people have a way of just kind of all of a sudden revealing their most vulnerability, the most vulnerable parts to you. That is true. Is it because of the tone in which you talk to people? You never talk down to people. You're always uplifting. You're always supportive. You're always someone who seems like they care. It seems like, yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I really have found that I have strangers come up to me and just start talking to me for whatever reason. I don't know what that is, but I do know that I am interested in people. I'm curious. That's my main thing. I am very curious. And I have empathy, sympathy, and I understand people's plights no matter where they're from, and I want to know them. And it's funny, Tim, when I see people, it's a weird thing that I really can't explain, but I see them. I see something in them. I don't see their physicality necessarily, but I see something. I connect in their eyes, and I do. I don't know what that is. Why? But where does maybe they feel the trust. They feel a trust that I can be trusted. That could be. And where do you feel that personal trait comes from in you, in the ability to have those moments with people? You could be meeting a stranger, and all of a sudden they're telling you their backstory, their life story. And as a writer, you're not going into it going, this could be a character, but it almost seems like everyday life inspires you to write. It's not like you're writing for everyday life. It's the other way around. It's the people you meet and putting yourself in those situations. Is that an accurate description on how you view that? Is, I mean, outside of my imagination, that is moving so fast. I wish I could create a film to be in my head. It's moving at such a rapid rate at every moment. Even when I'm sleeping, I'm dreaming. Last night I was having dreams. As for people, it's something I don't want to, it's the one thing, and I really want to find out things about life, but that thing I don't want to dig into too deep because I never want it to disappear because I'm afraid I'd disappear. So I don't.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean that if I knew what it was and it changed somehow in some dramatic way.
Like if you put a light on it and you said, this is why I am this way.
Yeah.
That perhaps maybe it would no longer exist.
It would no longer, it may disappear. It may fade away. And you talk about fear. That's a fear that I have because it brings me tremendous comfort and joy in times where, we all struggle through things. And with my imagination or my sadness or that I feel about certain things in life, that has always gotten me through. My imagination, being able to connect with people and hear their stories, and me being able to tell their stories or stories like them and protecting them, it assuages the grief that people do feel in life in general.
Well, you're tapping into a very interesting idea, especially coming from the perspective from a screenwriter. You're writing many different genres. You've worked in comedy, you've worked in drama, you've worked in everything in between, So when you're writing, putting yourself in that headspace, are you moving around from script to script? Are you sticking to one genre for a little while? Or do people around you go, Frank, you're acting kind of weird, because you're working on that mob movie,
Yeah, someone the other day texted me because I had some stuff I had been writing, and they saw it, and they said, "Are you always this serious?"
Yeah.
And I sent them some of my other stuff, and they said, "Oh, I move around. I love comedy. I laugh every day. It's something I find amusing, that I've written or that someone else has done." And comedy, really, that humor gets me through things. I look at things, even painful things, and try to see the fun. Life is funny. Even in the great tragedies of life, there's something funny, even though it's hard sometimes to laugh about things or find some humor. But it eases our ability and helps us get up the next day and go on. But I love comedy. I love writing about it. I love characters that have a little twist to them.
Well, I've noticed before in having the fortune of being able to read your work and see your work on film, you do, and when I'm just hanging out with you, we're always laughing, we're always doing bits, we're always joking. And I noticed that when we're just hanging out, there's a lot that we're making up on the spot. Yeah. But also when I read some of your work, you are able to kind of dig into these deeper issues and a lot of more emotional experiences. So it's just interesting from the perspective of a creative who's not being kind of you're not kind of being pushed into a corner in what you do. You're saying, I have an imagination just like everyone else. I'm not afraid to explore where it may take me. And a lot of people, especially from myself, I have ideas on what I want to do, but it's so far away from what I've done before that you go, well, how would that be perceived? And I have, just like everyone else, we have these worries of how we may be perceived as an artist.
Yeah. People like to put us in a box, in a corner, on a chair, and
on a stool.
On a stool now. I think my mic is.
Don't touch it.
Don't touch
Please
it.
Don't touch it.
Do not touch the microphone.
Don't touch it.
I think it's sinking, but anyway, I'll sync with it.
Okay.
I back to that. I don't want to be. I want to do many different things. So I want to, if I want to write comedy, drama, sci-fi. I want to be able to do that. I don't want to fit in any one genre because I'm interested in so many things. That's my curiosity is what drives me.
And I want to touch on another thing too, which is, although you are a screenwriter, although you do love to write, you also do documentaries, which is unscripted.
Yes.
How did you find yourself pursuing full-length documentaries? How did you find yourself wanting to move into that space as someone who writes so much? Now let's do something that's unscripted.
Yeah, that is interesting. And that all happened with one of the documentaries. This is my sister. I had met this woman with Down syndrome and her sisters. And actually, it was my daughter, Lily, who said to me, I had written notes down in my journal about the day I had dropped my daughter off at school and about meeting these people. And then when Lily went to college, I read the notes, and she says, Dad, you got to do something. And I had never done it before, so I didn't know exactly what it was going to entail. So I called them that day. I found their number. I called them, and I said my name. I told them who I am and what I wanted to do, and they invited me for breakfast. And I talked to them. This is what I'd like to do. I wanted to tell the story. The impetus for the story was the one sister standing to protect her loving sister, Mary, who had Down syndrome. And I witnessed that. And it made me proud to see someone protect someone. And I didn't, I knew their relationship at that time, and it moved me so much. And then when my daughter said, you need to do something, so I started talking. Now, remember, these people have been guarding and protecting Mary for, when I met her, 57 years old she was, and Mary's parents. So I set up the camera and let it happen. And I didn't know. Of course, I have a huge amount of film, but I put it down into an hour. So it would tell her story and her parents' story and the sister's story and get to that. And there's many sweet moments in the film. We have a 57-year-old woman, and she's very, she loves to dress up and wear lots of jewelry all the time. And she loves musicals and music, and I do. So we had a wonderful time. Sweet moments. I'm in her room and she's showing me all her clothes, and we're talking about films and musical, and it was a great experience for me to do that.
So it sounds a little bit like you're inspired by other people's stories, but it sounds like at the heart of everything is always about the story. What's the beginning, what's the middle, and what's the end? And of course, when you're a writer, you get to make that up. But when you're a documentarian, you don't necessarily know where the end of your film is. You know where your beginning is. And a lot of times when you start making a documentary, you're starting from the middle because something's already happened to inspire you to go out and start making it. So then you're trying to backtrack to get that beginning part. But the end part of trying to figure out where is the ending in this, especially in that sense, are you, as a documentarian at that point, are you starting to piece together the film in your head, or are you letting the events unfold and then going from there?
Well, in that particular doc, I didn't know what was going to happen. I let her go. I let Mary talk about her life. Her sisters talk about it, but I didn't know an end. I didn't have an end. I didn't know where it was going to end. I kind of knew why I was doing it, because her story was important to be told. And in the end, as we know now, that in doing that, it changed Mary's life. And that I'm really proud of that. And I was so happy for Mary that her community saw it. And people, I had at one of the festivals, I had a 80-something-year-old woman come up to me and take my hand and said, I had no idea that people were like that, like us, just normal, and they are. Mm-hmm. They're very normal. They love and they hope, and they want family. Mary had 2 jobs. She was just a wonderful person.
And it also seems like you have a great memory, because you have things that people say to you, like 1 lines, 2 lines, and these are things that you hold with you and take with you. I don't know if it's because you put it on a personal level of people saying something to you about your work, that you're very proud of. But you have a way of then transposing that to the screen and to your writing, and understanding, when I'm writing a character, this is this is how a real person in real life would act. How many times are we watching a short film or we're watching a movie and you and I will watch it separately, but when we get back together, the one thing we say is that would never happen in real life.
Yes.
Who are they trying to fool here? You know,
very common.
It's not something that would actually take place. So when you have people come up to you or you're experiencing things in real life, you kind of take that in, and it seems like that stuff sits with you for a long time.
It does. Things that, you know, as for my memory, I remember things that really mean something to me and move me and touch me, or that make me laugh. But things are mainly that move me, and then I can remember them. Other things I can't remember, the grocery list. but those things I can remember. And, you know, getting back to that never would have happened, the writer, the director mainly, is trying to get to this point over here, and they have to do this. They think, but they don't have to do that because they can do something else to get to that. Because when they're trying to do something that's important to get to from point A to B,
right?
They need to have those work, and when they break, it breaks the story, and then it doesn't seem cohesive, and something's wrong, and people know that, they feel it. The viewer, the non-filmmaker, people that view films, they know that something's not right.
They feel it.
Yeah, they feel it.
So as we wrap up here, I want to ask you, what would Frank G. Caruso of today tell the up-and-coming 13-year-old Frank G. Caruso?
Oh, the little kid. 13. I made a film with my Kodak M22 camera.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, I lost it. My film was thrown out. It was on a Super 8 film. It was Dracula, and Dracula was in a basement in the box. And I was doing it then with my Keystone editor, taping, splicing the film together. And Tim, when I saw that, him rising up out of my cousin Billy, rising up out of the box with ketchup on his mouth, I saw that on the film. I thought, oh my gosh, I was scared. I would say, do it. Stop. Don't have roadblocks. Don't ask for permission. People are in life in general. Oh, you can't do that. Oh no, that can't be done.
It's easier to say no.
It's easier to say no. Just go out and do it. You're going to find people that are passionate and love stuff to do. When I call Tim, for instance, let's go. What time? That's, we made it happen. What time are we showing up? So that, go and do it. Don't ask for permission and start it. Get it going. Get people that are passionate about the same thing and make it happen. That's it. That's what I tell that 13-year-old. But he did. He made the Dracula film.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Count Chocula.
Just don't touch the mics.
I'm not touching the mics.
I'm going to return these, I think. I'm definitely returning these and getting different mics.
We're getting different mics.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, anything else?
This was great.
Words?
Thanks for doing this. Yeah. This is great. I think my mic is sinking, though.
Yeah, it definitely is.
I'm getting a sinking feeling.
I have to return these. I'm returning these.
Because they're sinking.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weight on this.
There's a lot
mic.
of weight there.
Yours is rising, mine is sinking.
Yeah.
Maybe it's an age thing.
All right.
All right.
Creative Side Up is an Edgeline Studios production. Thanks for listening, and we hope you join us again soon.